ich dir noch angesäche, so bist du ihr aller Ehre. Was ist Wundes hier geschehen? Dass ein Magd ein Kind gebar, ihre über aller Engel Schar. Was das nicht ein Wunder gab.
This is The New Right, a podcast for the lost arts, reclaiming the literary holy land from the heathen. This is Dan Baltic. We are not joined by Matt today, unfortunately. He is off in LA doing Hollywood things, very glitzy and glamorous. But thankfully, I am joined by someone glitzy and glamorous. I am joined by Chloe Wheeler, who is an emerging young author and poet in New York City. And yeah, it is great to be here with you for episode 87. How are you, Chloe?
I'm great. I'm wonderful. It's a beautiful day. I'm here in Long Island right now, taking a break from the chaos of New York City. Thank you so much for having me. This
Of
is super
course.
cool. Yeah, I'm doing great. This is awesome. I haven't done a podcast in a few months, so I'm probably a little bit rusty in podcast etiquette, but I'm gonna do my best.
I am sure you will do very well. I mean, you do very well in print because you have been published by Hobart, by Expat, by Spectre, by Maudlin House, a number of different literary journals, kind of across the alt-lit spectrum. We were covering all the bases.
Yeah.
There's even, the alt-lit community is something that is like roiled by drama more than you would think, or actually
Yeah.
probably exactly as much as you would think.
Yeah, when
But
you get a bunch of writers in the same sphere, writers are strange people who spend a lot of time honestly alone. So I guess you could have on internet spaces, there's a lot of
yeah,
I don't know. It's fun though. I love it.
yeah, no, I mean it's great also for like creating a dialogue and a sort of like if in some sub communities or whatever, you worry about getting enough press, enough people talking about things, but writers will, so often kind of get at each other's throats about stuff that it, just pops off and drama draws eyes and it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you have written a number of things recently that are, pretty interesting. The American Dream, which is about a fictional account of a visit to a fundraiser for RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That I liked quite a bit, but and though it is, very much on topic for our podcast. I just finished reading The Immortality Glitch, and I really loved that. Not that I didn't love The American Dream, but The Immortality Glitch really got me. And, frankly, it's one of the best things I've read recently. And I thought if you're not opposed, we could kind of jump into that and start discussing that short story.
Yes, I would love that. And thank you so much. That kind of I don't know. I don't write a lot of short stories, and I've just kind of forayed into that. Like The American Dream was my first recent attempt as a semi-established writer to try and do a short story because I really only do poetry.
Yeah.
So I think that it sort of it was longer. It was, a process. I wrote The American Dream for a fiction class that I was in when I was in school, and it was a prank. It was trying to get the I don't know. I had started writing as a joke, and my friend was like, do it for class. And I was like, I'm gonna get canceled. But Immortality Glitch was like written kind of in one night. Um,
Sure.
and it started as a poem and then it became a short story because I figured there was just too much to cover. And yeah, it's a very, very special piece for me. And I didn't really want to publish it, but I figured I read it at a reading that I participate in a lot, Confessions.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love Confessions. Cassidy and Annabelle are two of my closest friends, and we share so much work between each other and inspire each other so much. I read it there because I felt safe to do so. It had a like really wholesome, beautiful crowd response, and people talked with me a lot afterwards about it. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna send it off.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you liked it.
Yeah, no, it's very good. And I mean, I could see how it started off as a poem because a lot of the language is very poetic. But yeah, also just a very solid short story. The title alone, and we'll return to it as we discuss it, but it's a great title. Titles are obviously important. It's how people remember a story, and the immortality glitch that just kind of like hits on these recent tropes. It's a little funny, a little poignant, and yeah, it just kind of, and indeed ironic. The best titles in my opinion are titles that have a kind of deeper meaning within the text. So like for instance, I titled my novel Nutcracker, and that is it is the name of a fictional pornography aggregation website within the text of my novel, but also there is a kind of metaphorical value to the title that applies to the work as a whole. That, it's a sort of like joke, it's a sort of provocation, a nutcracker, if you will. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's what the best, titles do. And so, like, this definitely, after reading it, it resonates. One of the things that jumped out at me immediately is this. I mean, this, just to kind of foreground it, it is the story of a high school relationship and how it tracks into young adulthood between a young woman and a troubled young man who is given to self-destructive behavior. And yeah, so it's in the way of kind of establishing the characters, the characterization, it's very good, and it relies on the show don't tell ethos, which I think is very important. I mean, you can break that in certain respects, like again, I hate to return to my novel here, but in Nutcracker, I will have Spencer tell quite a bit, and he like informs it quite a bit about the psychological character of his, acquaintances. But that's kind of, I feel like you have to be conscious of the rules when you break them, and this like very much was, a great example of not telling people what's happening, but showing them through action. And so the kind of litany of things that, uh, well, Devlin, I believe, I don't know if he's named in the piece itself, but in the end he is.
Yes.
Um, yeah, he does, all sorts of self-destructive stuff, such as falling out of windows, um, crashing his car into his parents' garage, um, getting multiple concussions. And the one that really jumped out at me was because this was, very evocative and it helped to characterize it on a number of levels, that he drank a shot of Windex on an Instagram live stream. And that just kind of immediately tells you a lot about a person
Yeah.
because, a person who drinks a shot of Windex, okay, that's pretty crazy. That's, why are you doing that? It could be, you're trying to kill yourself. It could be, you're trying to impress your friends. But okay, if it's like Instagram Live, it immediately tells you that this is probably, even though there are self-destructive urges that are probably underlying it, is an act designed to shock or impress not just friends, but a lot of people, because a lot of people could potentially view this. And this immediately characterizes the person as someone who wants to do something shocking and self destructive for a big audience. And that
Yeah.
is like a great way to characterize someone without saying a word about his psychology.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the show don't tell, I mean, it's a very like poetic way to like characterize people in a short story. So that's, I guess, where the uh, poetry aspect really does come in. I had a wonderful professor once for a poetry workshop. I really didn't know how to write. I was writing poems, but I didn't know why they were good when they were and bad when they weren't. And he was all about the concrete, that he would drill it into people's head, into all of the students' heads. We needed to be concrete. And all of the, abstract things, you can add that in once you've got a handle on the concrete. But I didn't, for some reason, that hadn't hit me. He was also a professor who would like take points off for poems, which I'd never experienced in like know, the academic culture that we're in, which is all about like being like, you're so good. And like being very sensitive about pieces. But anyway, the concrete was a huge thing. And that piece, I mean, it's autofiction. A lot of it did happen, and a lot of it didn't. Obviously, the fantasy uh twist at the end, kind of sci-fi, where time stops, is obviously,
Yeah,
um a I guess it's just how it feels, right? The last time you see someone, and the way that grief kind of freezes time, and in a, I guess, Didion-esque way, like magical thinking. That
yeah,
sort of was part of my inspiration for that. But when it comes to like, yeah, the characterization of Dev, I mean, he was my high school boyfriend and a very dear friend of mine. And I wanted to characterize him in a way that would be true to life, but also so true that people would feel like, because all these things are crazy. Like you could imagine like having a friend like this doing all these things would get really taxing and annoying almost.
yeah,
And you wouldn't want to be friends with them anymore or something like that. But I mean, the Instagram Live thing, the Windex shot was something that did happen. I don't necessarily I don't remember if it was like Instagram Live or like a group FaceTime, but it was for an audience.
sure.
And my when I think about people who do attention seeking things or pe people who are shock jocks, it doesn't it doesn't strike me as like a narcissistic or like attention seeking as a thing. I've always felt very like empathetic and sympathetic towards, because I feel like when people do that, they're really just trying to get somebody to care about them in a very extreme sense or be
Hmm,
worried. Or, when people want attention, I always think, okay, but maybe then they're not getting attention from the people who like really truly matter. And this
hmm.
is like a desperate measure that they're taking in order to obtain that. So I don't know, being around somebody like that really did teach me a lot about extreme like characters. So I'm always, I don't know, it can get me into trouble sometimes because not everybody is under all of that very like genuinely sweet like he was. So sometimes you meet somebody who's crazy and I'm a little bit too like give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, oh, this person is probably great underneath all of this, and then they fuck you over. But then that's also something you learn after that. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted people to just enter a portal into that time. You know,
Yeah.
the 2010s. There was, Instagram Live and all these things were kind of new, and like everyone was, experimenting with all of these things. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it absolutely came through. And something else that jumped out at me is how refreshing this is as a sort of coming of age story, because a lot of coming of age stories are, somewhat saccharine and, tend to whitewash certain things. And this, clearly was not that. And it actually got me thinking that, we all actually have a tendency, I think, to do this with our own memories. And we
Mhm.
think back to memories of, young adulthood, and we think, well, that was cute or that was fun. And, that was, it seemed like such a big deal at the time, but it really wasn't. And I think, and this is something that just occurred to me as I was, reading your piece, a lot of these events and incidences are, yes, motivated by kind of silly concerns and beliefs, and beliefs that we may no longer have, and we think, well, I would never do that today. But it doesn't mean that the actions and the potential consequences weren't severe. So like if you're blackout drunk in New York City, and you're like, passed out on a park bench or something, like, yeah, that, is kind of, you could look back on it in your 30s and say, yeah, that was a funny thing to do. And, but then, like, well, realistically, that was also probably a dangerous thing to do. And it's, a lot of these kind of youthful indiscretions are, things that we have, thankfully survived. But it could have, any this comedy, and obviously in your case it's not a comedy, but any of these kind of, coming of age stories could easily have become tragedies. And indeed this, is one.
Yes, 100%. I mean, like, I think a lot of the things that we do when we're young are very serious and very serious to us when we're in them.
Oh
And,
yeah.
you know, I'm like 22. All of this happened, in my teens. It's fresh in my memory, and I do sometimes have the tendency to be like, "Oh, those are the good old days. We were like, remember we did this and like we ended up here and how did we get home and we were about to vomit." But, when you're in it is very, very like serious and also like a first
Yeah.
love. We tend to like, I don't know, diminish the significance of it, but it's huge.
Oh
It's
yeah.
always be huge, and it's not when you have like a relationship that is that intense when you are that young. It's so serious, and
Oh
it feels
yes.
that way, and especially like in this case when he passed recently. um it made me think about like the span of one's life. Like, of course it was that serious because that was one of the only things he would get to experience. It makes you think, like, that was one of the things that I thought of. And yeah, I don't know. I wanted it to be, yeah, and I guess what I was also thinking when you were saying that is that there's this other thing that people do that kind of pisses me off a bit. When somebody has passed, they are always like, they always go to all the beautiful things that that person did, and their entire life becomes this like, oh, and they were this they were wonderful, they were
You're
beautiful.
a
You know,
gentle giant.
yes, but I think that that actually like undermines like the whole scope of who they were. Like
Yeah.
it makes it like, and then I don't know, people who didn't fuck with this person when they were alive, all of a sudden acting like, oh, and they were this and they were that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, they did a lot of fucked up stuff too.
Yeah.
And that almost speaks to their character because they were a great person, but they were also a person who did a lot of stupid shit. And
Absolutely.
I wanted to make it that way. Like I wanted it to portray reality. Like I feel like people read this and they see, oh, this person was messed up. They did a lot of stuff that could have had consequences that maybe weren't the case, but like this could have hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
But that is the scope of humanity. That was who he was, and that's how people are. I wanted it to be nostalgic without the like saccharine, sentimental, whatever. And I think it is a
Yeah.
little sentimental too,
No, it is. Yeah.
in a very realistic way, which is kind of how I see the world. I'm cynical as hell, but I think that I choose to like transcend, like in reality, I'm just like I'm kind of negative at times, but then when you accept that, everything kind of becomes easier and you can see beyond it, which is that this is all real. This is all fucked up. The world is kind of awful a lot, but once you truly accept it, you can move past that. So
Yeah.
that's also, I guess, something that I was thinking or maybe subconsciously thinking when I wrote it that materialized as I completed it, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
It reminds me of the meme bell curve where you have the low IQ, the
Yeah.
mid, and the high IQ, and the low IQ and the high IQ share the same beliefs, with the mid being the one who insists on a sort of scientific reading of the phenomena. And oftentimes what it appears to be is what it is, and it takes additional insight to figure that out. But
Totally.
yeah,
I love
that.
that. I love memes.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like I mean, this is trite to say, but an art form,
It really
and
is. I mean, all of my friends who are like totally like incredible writers and artists, a big part of all of that is making memes and making
yeah,
meme accounts about the art and pivoting off of that. It's
yeah,
so awesome. It's so creative.
exactly. And the way it's like interacting with traditional media. So, 2 summers ago, we had Barbie and Oppenheimer, right? And
Mhm.
that was driven, largely by memes, their success. And I think, that's going to be true for, most blockbuster movies going forward. And it's just like, to some extent, it's maybe bad for art or just psychologically grating that I'm watching a movie or a TV show and I'm checking my phone and I'm checking Twitter and I'm like,
Mhm.
well, can't you just put your phone down and enjoy something? But it is, for better or worse, it's just all being integrated, I think, into a kind of uh, cacophonous experience, which is kind of part of a new mode of art, maybe.
Yeah. I also think it's a more sincere form of like marketing or like
Oh yeah.
getting reach for a certain like work of
Yeah.
art, whether it be a movie or a book. I think like, we're all kind of I mean, most of us are kind of past like, seeing an ad and being like, "Oh, I really want to go get like Wendy's now." We all know it's bullshit, so it doesn't really work. But
Yeah.
this is like sincere. I don't know. This is just a thought that came to me. Like it's like people interacting with it, sharing stuff about it. And I think maybe it's fun to interact and know that you're interacting with it, or like not being able to fully like let go and watch something and not be on your phone.
Yeah.
Maybe being able to do both. Like I had a flip phone for like almost 2 years and I
Okay.
wasn't really on social media. But then I got my phone back and I feel like I interact with it in an entirely new way. I mean, I'm constantly tweeting, I'm constantly on my phone, but I don't feel like I have to be. And
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm doing things. Actually, I think that's really the heart of it. I don't feel like I watch or do or go to things because I want to tweet about it, because I
Yeah.
want to take pictures of it and show people that I'm doing that. I just do the things, and because I love social media,
Yeah.
going to share it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's absolutely me too. People who know Dan Baltic, they know that I'm tweeting like 15, 20 times a day.
Yep.
And it's not, it really, there's no day when I wake up and I'm like, oh fuck, I have to tweet. I'm like, it's like, it's something that, if I didn't love doing it, I would do it much less because I have like a ton of work to do. I have a lot of other stuff to do. So, if I didn't real, but I love it. And it's a natural kind of, I think for a writer or a specific type of writer who thinks kind of aphoristically, these kind of like things come to you as you're walking around. And in a way, it actually, I do, kind of worry that it is curtailing my ability to write long form prose because I'm just kind of like selecting the like, oh yeah, this is a great line. I'm gonna post it, and nothing else grows around it. But regardless, it's something that I do for fun. I do it all day long. And to tie it back to media and advertising, to the extent that people are doing this and it's authentic and it's not part of an advertising or public relations campaign, that is like much better marketing than any kind of paid ads because it shows like a genuine interest. And so, like, who knows if there was a relationship, a financial relationship between McDonald's and the Trump campaign? But Trump working at McDonald's with those, viral pictures, that, legitimately made. So I remember on election night, I ordered, well, okay, this didn't, exactly work because I didn't order McDonald's, but I ordered Shake Shack with my then ex-girlfriend or then girlfriend, and we ate Shake Shack watching the returns come in, and
Yeah.
it just felt like so like what could be more perfect than and like I was, so like I see Trump and I'm like I want some fucking fast food. And
Yeah.
RFK probably would not approve, but I'm sure McDonald's and Shake Shack do.
Yeah, it was like that other picture where they're all in the jet and RFK is
Oh yeah.
like with he and he's like, oh, making this tweet where he's like, oh God, why am I eating this? But no, McDonald's is great. I mean, they ordered. I wasn't there for this party. I had my own thing with my then boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend, at his place where we sat and watched the election.
Hmm.
But at Sovereign House, they ordered McDonald's like
Oh, I
catering
saw that. Yeah.
and it was like all everywhere and yeah, it was great. It's so fun. I've had McDonald's like 3 times in my life, but it's always great. It feeds the soul. Um
It tastes really
yeah,
good. I mean,
it
that's like a
really
part of how
does.
they do business. It's like it's
Yeah.
really good tasting.
And everything in moderation. I feel like it's more unhealthy actually to like strictly prohibit yourself from consuming things like that than to occasionally let yourself have that. Like
Absolutely.
mentally, stress is the killer. If you're stressing yourself out with nutrition, you're
Yeah.
probably going to die sooner.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like the people who never have alcohol, that just doesn't seem healthy. I mean,
No, because like,
like occasionally, yes. And like, yeah, you probably should not be, drinking like 5 drinks a night every night, depending on your size. But like one drink a day, yeah, that's probably fine. I mean, like Mediterranean people have some of the longest lifespans.
oh,
Obviously,
totally.
they're drinking wine all the time. That's
Well,
their,
in Sardinia,
staple.
live forever. And
Yeah.
that, yeah, I love that. That would be like my framework. I think I definitely, the pendulum swings a lot, but I think it honestly, that the reason for that is because I grew up with a very strict, like, mother who was very health conscious. So I wasn't allowed to eat candy. I wasn't allowed to go to get any fast food ever. And then when I like was able to like have autonomy. I remember there was this one week when I was living alone in college where I like literally just got 2 full-size bags of Halloween candy and that's all I ate for like a week. That and like alcohol. And it was awful and I felt like shit, and then I just stopped.
Yeah.
Because I learned my lesson, but the pendulum has to swing. I'm definitely in an era of my life where I do drink too much, but I
Yeah.
think I'm very cognizant of that fact. It's not something I want to continue doing, and I will stop. That's what an
Yeah.
alcoholic would say, but I I will.
I mean, I think everyone is by definition an alcoholic in their 20s.
Oh yeah, that
Like
too.
the part where you're like, oh, I have to go to AA is when you're acting like you're in your 20s and your mid or late 30s. And then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, you're like it's no longer age appropriate, so you've become an alcoholic. But
Yeah, or when it
it's not like
impedes
your
on your
behavior has
ability
changed.
to do things you need to do.
True. Yeah.
That's always been my metric for things, like regardless of what it is. If it starts affecting my ability to be a person, go to work, get up in the morning when I need to, that's a problem, and that's when you should reevaluate your decisions. But I feel
True.
like, yeah, or once you feel yourself, you can sense when that's about to happen. Maybe that's just because I'm like extremely like I don't know. I'm like neurotic about certain things. So I think I clock it. It's not even self-awareness. It's neuroticism. It's not even a good thing, but it can be.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Well, it's
that
good
makes
for art, I think. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
you have to
is.
be very sensitive to write well, I think.
Yes, which is a blessing and a curse. But um going back to something you said about Twitter, and like tweeting and feeling like it might be like preventing you from doing long-term works. I feel like I don't think it's true. Maybe it can be, or maybe that's like could be a mental block because I've also thought that at times. But I feel like it's like it keeps like the mechanism like
Yeah.
machine lubricated.
Yeah.
It's like if you're churning out these things, like you're constantly thinking literarily or something. So if I'm tweeting a lot, I feel like maybe I'm not even in a position or have the free time necessarily to write a long work, but it's keeping me thinking in that way. And then oftentimes I'll like use my tweets as prompts or
Sure.
even just like, I think I forget, I don't know if this is true, but didn't like Moo House start the whole like selected tweets thing?
Maybe,
I'm not
yeah.
sure. I don't know where it originates. I think it does, but like Towlin selected tweets and just like the whole like I have like a piece that I published on Hobart that was just a bunch of my tweets in like the diary format. I think that that's so awesome. It's kind of just like a weird like found poem, but
Yeah.
it's not it's just your Twittered. It's like a diary.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I agree.
it's great.
The kind of idea that you're kind of lubricating the mechanism, I definitely sign off on that. I guess my main concern is that I'm receiving the sort of like dopamine fulfillment of writing
Right.
but I'm not writing long form pieces as often. And that, is potentially getting in the way, but I don't think it's because like I am writing Nutcracker 2, and when I sit down to write a chapter, it's not, it's not harder than it was. I think if anything, it probably is the case that I am a better off the cuff writer because of Twitter than before. It's just a matter of, I mean, maybe you've found this in connection with longer pieces. I don't know. But I find that if you're trying to write a novel or something and you're sitting down like every weekend, that is not ideal because you kind of get out of the voice and get out of the character head. And so, like, when I wrote Nut, I was doing it like 3 hours a day every day. And so you're just living in that voice. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Uh, but obviously, in, the real world, many people can't afford 3 hours a day to write. And that was at
Yeah.
the beginning of COVID when things were a bit slow in my industry.
Of course. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I think that's why I think ultimately to write like a really good poem, you can't be lazy about it. it can't come out just like in a spurt and like you leave it there and it's like, oh, it's done. Sometimes it happens, but like I like poetry and I think that poetry is already having and will like continue to maybe accrue more interest in like the general like populace because it's
Yeah,
short form. I feel like you can read a poetry book and it's like kind of akin to like scrolling through Twitter in a sense,
true. That's
scrolling
a
through
good
Instagram.
point.
And so I kind of have, I'm optimistic about the future of poetry. And I think that um, it goes with the speed of modernity.
Yeah,
But that's why I like writing poems in terms of staying in a voice. Because I think my what I'll do is sometimes it comes from a tweet, but I'll like write down phrases or feelings as I go about my day in like a journal or my notes app. And then I'll sit down to write and I won't like force it, but I'll just let it do its thing. And then when I edit it, I like to give it time and then I look on it with fresh eyes and then I chip
yeah,
away at it for weeks. And then suddenly it becomes something. And then I share it with other people too and they give me their perspective or even doing readings. I think that's why I like readings a lot because in a similar sense to posting on social media, you get a very instant response to what you're writing or
absolutely.
written, and it's so great. And that I think that that's why readings are also becoming or have been becoming for years, but more and more and more popular. I feel like everyone
Yeah.
loves it. Not just, I think part of it's just an excuse to party, definitely because it's a reading, but everyone's doing a lot of things. Uh, it's kind of it's also like a meat market. But it's great and I love it. And I've been like couch surfing for the past like 5 months.
Mm,
And so I've been very like not able to like sit down and focus and read as much as I'd like to. I have been reading, but definitely not as much as I have in the past because life is so chaotic. So I
yeah,
love going to readings and scrolling because I feel like I'm still getting all like I'm getting inundated with literary things and stories and hearing my friends read and other people read, but it's instant and I don't have to like lock in as much.
absolutely.
I love it so much. I'm addicted to readings.
Yeah. The one of your poems describing the process of reading, I believe this was in Hobart.
Oh yeah,
Um, it
with the
is
fish
poetry reading.
emojis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think you captured it really well, this feeling of yeah, you're kind of yeah, like a fish being hooked by the audience and you're not sure are they, you feel like prey, kind
Yeah.
of, and you're not sure if they're laughing with you, if they're laughing at you. You're in this kind of state of suspended, knowledge or lack of knowledge, where you're reading and you're kind of trying to clock their response, but you won't really get it until later.
Yeah. Well, readings are weird. One of the things I don't like about the readings and the reading world in New York City is the fact that there's a lot of like clout chasing and clout
Yeah,
motivated lineups and like it used to make me feel really bitter. And I think yes, this is true. One of the first like downtown readings that I did was it was this event that my friend Paige hosted at this weed store. And it was with all of like the
Times
Dimes
Square.
people or whatever. And I didn't really know who anyone was, but I was really pissed off because the original lineup was like posted the flyer and he had told me I could read, which was a huge thing for me because I was not in any world. So I was like, "Oh my God, I'm on the
Yeah.
same lineup as this person." Like I did know some of them, so I was like, "Oh, what?" And then I wasn't on the flyer. And I was like, oh my God, it's because I have no clout. Like I am like a nobody. Nobody knows who I am. Like this is awful. And so in like a stream of like passion and anger and frustration, I wrote this poem. I've recently been informed that I have no clout. And then an hour later, he texted me and said, "Oh, like my bad. Like I just forgot to put you on. I have to release another flyer." And I should have known because he tends to be like that sometimes, like love him to death, but he'll just forget. It's no, but I had
Yeah,
already written the poem, so I thought what would be better than to read it at the reading.
yeah,
So I read
absolutely.
it and that was my debut and it was so fun and so awesome and kind of kicked off everything that I've been doing since. But yeah, that poem poetry reading wasn't necessarily about that night, but it really feels that way. And the other thing I don't like about poetry readings, I guess circling back because I went on a tangent, is
No,
how
it's good.
uh, um, the success of a piece is often gauged on how much the audience is laughing.
Yeah,
And that's great. Like, I love writing funny poems. I can write funny poems, and it's successful, and they do laugh. Sometimes they don't, and I think, oh, I flopped. And then I'm like, wait, but that's not the point of this at all,
yeah,
actually. I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm an actress, but I'm not a stand-up comedian. I would never do stand-up comedy. I have so much respect for people who do. Just not my thing.
yeah.
And why are we like, it's like we're little court jesters, like us, like it's like we're like supposed to like be like, oh, the audience is like, I don't know. But I think that I've moved away from that a little bit and like have taken to reading more serious pieces and not expecting the laughs. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. But that's something that I've always like kind of been a little bit like, I don't really like that energy.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point because, I mean, certainly a lot of what I write is comic or comic at times. So I am looking for the laughs at the right moments. But if you're not writing that, if you're not writing something that is, necessarily comic, yeah, laughter would probably be a bad sign. So, yeah, I mean, like, certainly when
Bad when
I'm,
you don't get it, though. Like
um,
people will fall asleep, you know?
yeah,
That's the beauty of the comic pieces, though, and why I do like writing them is because you have to be aware of the people's attention spans, and we all have terrible attention spans now. So the comedy hooks people and then sort of
true.
softens them to receive the more meaningful stuff, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
you were saying.
And sometimes there, when you get a laugh that is not at the right place, it kind of like it will throw me because I'll be like, wait a minute, that is not a laugh line. Did I fuck up? Did I do something wrong? Did I? And so it's like it's a very, I mean, I think until you've read people don't really understand what type of experience it is. And there's like actually now that I think about it, there's not enough writing about reading, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's like a interesting well to explore because the kind of like the vibe of the crowd will feed you, and like if the crowd isn't into it, you're gonna be like increasingly not like full of frill, but if they're like digging it, you're gonna be like really like, and you're gonna do better, just like an athlete. If the crowd is booing you, well, it depends. Maybe some athletes feed off of that negative energy. It's
Yeah.
like I'll show them. But, I think probably more often than not, if the crowd is cheering, you feel like a sort of invincibility which carries you through. And yeah, that's definitely how I've experienced readings.
Yeah, you feed off of it. I mean, it's so gratifying and it feels really good when everybody's, not just laughing or like they're like cheering or they're like, "Oh my God, like yes, like I love it." It also just feels like kind of a return to like early theater too. Like Shakespeare and like the interaction of the crowd and the performers, which I feel like has kind of like become not a thing anymore with like modern theater. It's so like
Oh
stuffy.
yeah,
In the same
absolutely.
way, like jazz was kind of like a rowdy and fun art form, and now is all just like stuffy, like older white people. And like if you're dancing, like what are you doing?
Yeah,
Readings have that spirit to them where like everyone is just kind of having a good time and interacting with each other.
absolutely.
I love it so much. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, as I said before, I'm addicted to readings. They keep me inspired. They're also part of the lubrication of the mechanism. Um, and I like to, I don't know, I kind of want to move away from this a bit, but a lot of my poetry recently has like been about poetry or been
Mm.
about the scene or been about like readings. Um, but like I know it's relatable and I know it's relatable within the spheres that are like reading my work. So I'm not like mad at it, but I think I did it and now I kind of want to stop. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
You'll be happy to know. I don't know if I probably have told you already, or I don't know if I've told the audience yet, but you will be reading at New Ritual Press's Summer Solstice Party on June 21st in New York City. It's going to be the official New York launch of New Ritual Press, which is the press that Matt Pegas and I started along with Evan P. And we are going to have. I'm reading Omar King, the author of an Odyssey of Dingbats, is going to be reading. Chloe, you will be reading Chloe Wheeler, and Emma Girl of Substack fame. She will be reading. And the reason why I brought this up in the first place, besides to promote the event, is that we will be presenting a new play by Roman D'Ambrosio. And that to me is kind of, as you were saying, that theater was originally intended to be something a bit, more rowdy, a bit more with more audience interaction. And that's what I'm hoping for here. It's a short, one act, obviously, one act play, and it's very evocative. It kind of like delivers something that is really visceral, that people can kind of respond to. And yeah, it's hopefully something that the audience really finds themselves like getting into and like cheering, or like being grossed out or
It
whatever.
totally will. I mean, I know Roman. He's a friend of mine. And he was actually at the eclipse reading
Oh,
that I
great.
did. And he was so that was like my first step into all of the alt lit like stuff. I had just been published by Expat, and Manny was like, "Can I come to this reading?" And at first, that reading was supposed to be a joke. Like I started it, I made a flyer. It was just me and my friends. I was like, I'm gonna make a flyer and post it because that's what people do things.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna post it. And then Manny was like, "Oh, can I come?" And I was like, uh, uh, sure, I guess. Why not? Fuck it, right? And he brought a few of his friends, and he brought Scott Litz,
Yeah.
and he brought Roman, and they were like, "Oh my God, you guys are so fun, and we don't know any of you. Like, this is so cool to discover a whole like world of like people who are writing and writing in like a way that, we relate to and we
Yeah.
enjoy." And who are so young and like they were like, "Oh, let me recruit you for our literary whatever." And so Roman was like, "I have a few plays. Um, I would love for you to just take them. We met for coffee and discussed it. Take them, perform them. You can direct them, you can cast them, do whatever. I trust you." And so for our second reading that we hosted, we called it Threesome, and it was three of Roman's plays, like interspersed between like other poetry readings. And it was exactly like that. People loved them. People were interacting with them. It was super like chill. We were doing it at my old apartment. We were like set it up in like one of the bedrooms with like the doors open. It was like these two big doors, and they were a hit. So I have no doubt that it will be the same for the solstice reading. Totally.
Amazing. Yeah. No, perhaps we should have tapped you to act in this play.
Ah, next
But
time.
yeah, since you're already reading that, might it
Redundant.
might, yeah, it'll look like we don't have enough people
Yeah,
to show
yeah.
up. But yeah, no, I love his plays, and just like very topical, but also very well written. And yeah, I wish I had been there, because a sort of like apartment reading of a play. Like that's the type of thing I feel like that, if our thing, whatever it is, has staying power and people are talking about it 25 years from now, they'll say, oh yeah, that, apartment reading, that was like where, the real heads were or something,
Yeah,
the old
spirit of
heads.
like spontaneity and DIY. Like let's just have people over at the apartment, DM for a dress. Like it's
Yeah.
like super, I love it. It's like yeah. And I think maybe I'm being like a total like narcissist about like what we're all doing, but I feel like this is what people are going to be talking about. Like we love it just be like a thing that I talk about with my friend Cassidy is just like we would be doing everything that we were doing if it were only just us who were interested in it, totally.
Yeah.
But then there's no denying that people on the outside, whether they hate it or they love it, and there's a lot of polarized views. I feel like people are like either like totally shit on alt-lit or think we're a bunch of like fascists, but they're still talking about us. They're
Yeah.
still garnering attention, and I think that in 25 years, people will be like, "Oh yeah, that was the heart of the art scene."
Oh
In
yeah.
in
Absolutely.
like we're
Like,
doing something cool, and we believe that, and I think that the power of belief in what we're doing is really important. It manifests it. It's gonna be. It is true because we believe it is.
yeah, I'm one of the kind of basic tenets of why I started this podcast with Matt, New Right, why we started New Ritual Press is the idea that the mainstream publishing, literary, entertainment industry, what have you, is so beholden to hegemonic liberal narratives that they can no longer actually produce authentic and honest stories, and thus the art is totally compromised, or if not totally, significantly so. And as a result, whatever the quality of this, thing that we're building on the outside, and I think there's, a lot of it is high quality, like the immortality glitch. That's, I could read that in the New Yorker. And that is, there are examples of novels and poems and, probably soon, not even probably soon, there are films that I would, characterize. Certainly TFW, No GF. I think that's like a classic. I mean, okay, it's a documentary, but
Yeah,
the spirit of like honest storytelling is something that is a necessary condition for any art, really. And as a result, I think, where we are is where the artists are going, and like the best art is going to come out of this, quote unquote scene. And so I think in, 25 years, people are going to look back and they're going to say, well, these were the people who actually cared about art and weren't pursuing it for some sort of like merit badges or career plaudits, but instead actually were trying to produce memorable works of art. And yeah, I think we'll all have our place in the firmament.
totally, totally. Yeah, 100%. Um,
Maybe
and
that's too
No, I don't
optimistic,
think
but
so. I mean, I was so like jaded in college and like I really all of this, my knowledge of like alt lit and all this whole world is very, very new to me. And at a time I really felt like there was no point in pursuing anything and I never wanted to like publish anything, which is kind of like the covert narcissist thing where it's
yeah.
like you're just downtrodden and it's like sad. You can break out of it, and I think I did. I definitely did. But what I was receiving and hearing in school, I was just like so like there's really this is not what I want to do. And then I met a bunch of people who knew that, and my friends at school, Maddie Bean, Leah Ivanov, who also have stuff published with Expat and Hobart and all of those incredible, incredible writers. They put me on to everything.
Hmm.
And I'm so grateful for them
Hmm.
because we just had our own little insular thing and it expanded outwards and now I have so many friends and it's like it's so inspiring really. And
Absolutely.
we uplift each other and
Hmm.
it kind of reminds me with a more negative perspectives of like, oh, we're so like, and I don't know, like whatever. But it reminds me of kind of like shoegaze, maybe. Like
Sure.
how they were like considered like shoegaze was like derogatory. They were like they have so many pedals, they just stare at their feet. And they were also called the scene that celebrates themselves. Um, and it was like negative, but now like there's like a huge resurgence in that kind of music, and all of them are
Yeah.
going on tour again and making new albums. So I feel like it's kind of going to be like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think to a certain extent, you do have to celebrate yourself if you want to be taken seriously. And, you should do so in a way that's kind of like unique and fun. So, like, when I tweet promoting Nutcracker, I'm having fun with it and I'm enjoying the cultivation of, fans and kind of inside jokes and all of that. And that isn't antithetical to the art, that's very much part of it. And I think this new generation of writers and artists where, we have to wear the hat of, also being a marketer and a publicist because the, traditional publishing industry, they are not publishing us, so we don't have access to their marketing teams. But even if we did, they're just not that effective.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like for instance, an Odyssey of Dingbats, I mean, we've sold, I think probably around hundreds, if not 1,000 copies already of Omar's novel that we published in February. And that is like more than a lot of literary fiction debut novels that, a big publishing house tries to get behind and they, maybe have a review in the New Yorker or something. But the truth is, like, not that many people read the New Yorker, and not that many people who read it are then motivated to buy a book. But
Yeah.
if you have, like 15,000 committed Twitter followers. If you get on a YouTube, so like Omar was on Soft White Underbelly, and
Yeah.
if you get on a YouTube show that, like 50,000 people, watch regularly, you will have a higher conversion rate than the kind of like, you got reviewed in the New Yorker and like five rich people in on the Upper West Side who read it are like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
might I might buy this.
Yeah, totally. Or even like I don't know like how like into Instagram you are, but like on Instagram like my friends and I mean it's been a thing for a moment, but like making like a blank selectuals account or like a blank source account that's either about you or about, a book that you're into, like I don't know, there's like a bunch of those and like I know like some of my friends who like publish and have published books recently, they'll like make an account for it and post like memes about it and it really gets a lot of reach and
Yeah.
people love it. People love interacting with the memes and like, it like spreads like a wildfire. It's really interesting how people take to things. Like in my life, recently, um, my friends, specifically one of my friends, Joe, he has been posting videos of me a lot. And I don't know if you're familiar with angelicism,
A
who
little
made
bit, yeah.
Noma One. Yeah, he started seeing these videos and he was like, she's really awesome. And now Angelicism is making a movie with Joe called This Is the Girl. And it's going to be similar to Filma One, but it's like for some reason, like I don't even really know what's happening behind the scenes. I don't think they're gonna do me dirty or anything, but they're making this movie where like I'm the face of it, and it's just so
Oh
weird.
wow, that's
People,
cool.
it's really it is cool, and I'm like flattered. It's kind of strange too, but I'll take it. But like
Yeah.
people now, like who I've never met before, are like, coming up to me at like events and being like, "This is the girl," and I'm like, "Oh, sure, yeah, why not?" But like things do, like for some reason, if the algorithm picks it up, or a few schizos really like it,
Yeah.
it becomes a thing. I feel like somehow like the strange like underground of like orbiting schizos really like even on Twitter too. Like I like randomly kind of gained traction last year. Um and now like
Sardine enjoyer.
Sardine enjoyer, a lot of people
You have
like
good tweets. I like
they
that.
like it. I love tweeting. I mean, hey, it's a passion of mine. Um, but and yeah, people will also like be like, "Oh, hey, sardine enjoyer," which is also funny. Um,
Do you like sardines? I assume you
I
do.
love sardines,
I
of
don't
course.
think I've ever had one, which is,
Really?
odd as a half Jewish New Yorker that I've never had a sardine. I feel
That's
like although maybe it's not necessarily a Jewish food. Probably isn't.
well, I mean, fish like
Yeah. Like dried
steak.
fish is like generally
Yeah,
we're in the vicinity.
smoked whitefish style.
We're
Well,
we're
hey,
close to the shtetl.
I'll bring a can of some of
You
the best
should.
sardines to the reading,
Yeah. That would
and
be amazing.
we could do a tasting at the end.
Yeah. No, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get
I'll
some
have
nice.
my first sardine.
That would be beautiful, honestly. And then we'll tweet about it afterwards.
That would be wonderful. Um, I wanted to touch on the RFK story a
Yeah.
bit, and the so you wrote for Expat a story called The American Dream,
Mhm.
which is it's a fictionalized account of attending a middle-aged woman who attends an RFK fundraiser on Long Island, and she is hoping to meet RFK. She is has a crush on him, and his one thing I thought you did very well was describing what makes RFK sexually attractive. And that is like, something that, certainly the left is like, he's an old man on, hormones. What is wrong with you people? This is gross or whatever. But like, I mean, I'm heterosexual, but like he's like, yeah, he's in good shape. He's pretty good looking. The like even the croaky voice, there's a certain charm in it. It's really
Yeah.
weird, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not, may, all right, like I'll admit I am attracted to older men. I'm not that attracted to him. I think he's hot. I do. If he were to like express interest in me, I would probably not turn that down. But I also just like my mom's like whole like sphere of like health obsessed like what would be considered like honestly classical like liberalism but now is considered very like conservative randomly.
Hmm.
um they all the way that they talk about him like on Facebook is just so like funny and like thirsty, and then also just like sort of like the sexually deprived like middle-aged woman is like a trope that's like really funny to me because I also think there's a lot of like, a lot of discourse surrounding age gap relationships, but
Yeah,
like more so like, older men talking about younger women.
of
And
course.
I thought it would be funny if, the plot twist at the end of the story, um, she's going into it like, she's younger than RFK,
Yeah.
but she's like super enamored by him and she's like not really getting any at home and very frustrated about this, which I feel like middle-aged women's sexuality is not really talked about a lot, or even like I feel like horny women are very oppressed.
Our most depressed minority.
Yeah, literally. Um, and it's not really something, it's like always like the horny old guy, but it's never the horny middle-aged woman. But so instead of going for him, she ends up going for like the 20-year-old guy, the son of the woman hosting the gala. And I don't know. I thought it would be funny. And like as we were talking, before the podcast, like a lot of this did happen.
Hmm.
And when my mom read it, she was like, are you like negging me? Is this like about you?" And I'm like, it really isn't, but it is kind of based on her. Um,
Interesting.
but like in very like subtle ways. Like there, some, she's in the story, she's like an editor and like a writer. She's like a freelance writer. She keeps bringing that up sort of to like make herself feel better. She's like, and I didn't even get the chance to say that I was a freelance writer. Which is something that I feel like my mom is like, she's probably gonna listen to this. I can't say that much, but sometimes she's always just like, "But I'm a writer. I'm a writer." Um, yeah. So it was based on some reality about her and some reality about me, and like
Yeah.
imagine and like also like dramatizing it a bit to like make it for the comedy aspect, but also because I feel like it's true sometimes when you're like in the vicinity of somebody with so much like aura and like undeniable riz, like, you're
Like
going
Kennedy
to start,
Riz.
yeah, you're gonna be like hypnotized. And but also just like the characterization and the tropes of like the Long Island elite and like not eating the food, but it's like the best food you can imagine. And like everyone's like very like obsessed with title and like the elitism of it all.
Hmm.
Um, and then at the end, I mean, I guess it's fine if I give spoilers.
Oh
It's not
yeah. No, yeah, I
that.
think that's fine. I mean, it's totally up to you, but
Yeah. Well, basically RFK dismisses her because he has to pee, which did happen. We like were waiting. My mom really wanted to meet him. I have this weird thing when I'm like around somebody who's famous. Like I don't really want to bother them.
Hmm.
So it's like organic. Like I don't like waiting in line to talk to somebody. Like
Hmm.
even like after a reading and there's somebody pretty like notable there, I don't like to bother them because I could just put my it must be annoying at a certain point of like people just like being like, "Oh my God, you're so cool." Like I don't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. My mom was like pulling me. She's like, "Come on, like we're gonna get a picture. Come on." And then he was like, "I'm so sorry. Like I have to go take a piss." And left. But then, you
And
know,
that's so rendered so well. I mean, like I
yeah.
could perfectly imagine him saying that.
Yeah, and he did. He was like, honestly, he's very chill and like very like down to earth in person. And like however the media portrays him. I mean, I see a lot of like good media, but it might be just my algorithm giving me the good things because I've
Yeah.
heard other things too. But he's very cool. He's a nice guy, and down to earth. I mean, which is also one of the characterizations I give, where she's like talking about he's like a true American. He's the last real man. He he is like, he's had a crazy life. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
isn't it so relatable that he dropped a dead baby bear in Central Park? Like, we've all been there.
Of course, yeah.
Um,
I did it earlier today.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that's the New York experience. Um, but yeah, well, like she like then ends up sleeping with the young guy and he walks in on them. I originally wanted them to like have like a threesome. And I was like, let me leave it ambiguous. Let me like give it open to interpretation. Maybe he does. Maybe something happens. But I didn't want it was better to
Yeah.
leave it with like he rolls over and he hits his vape.
Yeah. No, I thought that was better to, leave it ambiguous because like, yeah, it seems like it's a possibility. He,
Yeah.
seems like a pretty horny guy.
Yeah,
Like you
he's
never know.
teeming with
Well, testosterone, clearly.
road.
Additional
Yeah, yeah.
testosterone. One of the things that I really liked about this, was the characterization of Jimmy, the guy,
Mm,
the MAGA guy. He's supposed to be, I think, around 20 or something like that.
2021, I think. I don't remember.
Yeah. He is so clearly a Zoomer guy, which is, if people follow my account, I have been very flattering toward the Zoomettes, but very disparaging of the Zoomies, the
Yep.
Zoomer boys. But I do actually think that, they are impressive and have a lot going for them. And this kind of characterization of a like chud bro, guy in his 20s who is like the son of, probably rich liberal people, maybe not so liberal if they're hosting an RFK fundraiser, but he has a MAGA hat. Like someone like him would not have had a MAGA hat on 4 years ago, I don't think,
Yeah.
but like now he does. And the books that you described on his shelf, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, but also How to Win Friends and Influence People, books by Young, The 48 Laws of Power. I think that was a great example of show don't tell characterization. But to take it beyond the literary, I think what you're showing here is something that is kind of a phenomenon of young men who are kind of coming into adulthood, coming of age, for want of a better word, red pilled.
Yeah.
And that is like something that is, I think in a weird way will give them like a real head start in a way that, like, for instance, I'm a millennial. I was uh 22 in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected. And so, basically, like in my generation, whether you voted for Obama or McCain, the only people who were like red pilled were like living in compounds in Idaho or something.
Yeah.
It was really not like the most was like, in the 2010s, like I guess the manosphere and the incel forums took off, and this kind of like dating stuff did kind of seep down into the overall culture. But the kind of clear-headedness with which like Zoomer Chud Bros are able to approach life philosophically, it kind of, to my mind, gives them a head start because like Nutcracker, I wrote Nutcracker in my mid 30s after being like, I guess, red pilled or whatever. And, so I had a firm sense of what I believed, to be true or not true, and, how I thought about those things and approached those things. And that's still evolving. But the idea that, the men of my generation and the women of my generation, to a lesser extent, because many of them do not are just kind of libtards, but that it took a longer time to kind of learn these things. Well,
Mm,
that's like less time that we have to make art that reflects reality and
right.
build businesses that reflect reality and form relationships. And so, like, for instance, it strikes me as extremely sad that I know, men who are my age who, they um, got married, they have kids, and their wives are like aghast that they support Trump. And the values that are being taught to their kids are kind of like, stuff that I would say, is not uh, correct morally. And not to take this onto a real political slant, but I think, it's very I don't think enough press and attention is given to the kind of unique opportunity of young people, but especially young men today, to kind of approach the world from their early young adulthood on their own terms, knowing well, okay, this is what reality is. This is what, because like I know like a lot of these guys would not have married their wives if they, had these discussions about or had these beliefs 10 years ago. And it's I think, and this is like I'm extrapolating quite a bit from your your short story here, but in your portrayal of Jimmy, I guess what I'm saying is there's, I think, a lot to be said about that type of young man and what this portends, what this positively portends for the future of art and culture and society.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned that because when I was workshopping this story, you know, it was a joke. I had started writing it because, I remember sharing it with my friend Leah and being like, I'm gonna write this like RFK smut piece that's like and I kept writing it and I needed to turn in something for my final like short fiction piece for school. And obviously like I went to City College, it's predominantly liberal,
Sure.
working class though.
Mm,
So I was surprised that a lot of people weren't offended by it. I thought they would be. I thought I was kind of taking a risk and I was. But it's funny that a lot of like you know, POC working class people and students are actually a lot more open-minded
mm.
when it comes to, a piece like this. So I didn't actually get completely slandered and like, canceled. Now I
Good.
am there, but that's
Uh,
different. That's just, word of mouth and people seeing my piece, making assumptions that aren't true. Like I've been told like, oh, Chloe said like the N-word on her Twitter, and I never have. So they're just assuming that just because maybe I say the word retard that I have. I don't know. But that's another thing entirely. I
yeah.
did this, we were workshopping it, and one of my professors' critiques was she's like, I don't know where you stand. I don't know where your character stands, and I don't know like what the political message of the piece is.
Mm,
And I said, my response to that was that there really is none, although it discusses politics. But she's like, it's interesting you chose RFK because RFK is a weird, figure because, you know, he was a Democrat and some of his views are pretty classically liberal and like, he had took, he's an environmentalist. He was a huge reason why the Hudson is, as clean as it is today.
yeah.
He, stereotypically and maybe it's true like a lot of conservatives are they think climate change isn't real, um and that's a whole other rabbit hole. But she was like, it's weird that you chose him, and it's weird that like I don't know if you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump. And I was like, I think it just reflects the reality of politics nowadays. It's so weird and skewed because I think a lot of people who are really like full like Republicans might think that I'm like a liberal freak, but then Democrats would probably say that I'm like a fascist, like conservative, like I don't know.
Yeah.
But because my views are kind of all over the place, but I think that I'm pretty consistent. Like one of the, personally speaking, like one of my beliefs is like bodily autonomy. And I
Sure.
think that it's kind of ironic that the conservatives like throw a fit over like abortion, but they tend to be like pro-choice when it comes to vaccines.
Yeah.
And on the opposite side of the spectrum, pro-choice when it comes to abortions, but everyone needs to be vaccinated and they have no choice. And if you don't, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, I'm pro-choice for both of those things. And I feel like that's like ethically consistent for me. Um, so I kind of wanted to portray the current
Yeah.
political sphere and world, which is like kind of like nobody really knows. Like, it's interesting that Jimmy has this selection of books because it's kind of across the map and like, he supports Trump. But then there's a huge amount of people that I know. A lot of people I know didn't vote at all.
Mm,
And like not even just as a statement, but like just they didn't.
Yeah, just
I
didn't
know
make
some
it there.
yeah, they didn't make it there, or like some people who didn't get the vaccine just because they didn't really need to. There was no whatever, it wasn't a political statement. Some people who got it to make a political statement, some people who got it for work. And like my whole thing is like I don't judge anyone for any decision that they make as long as they're like, a good person.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, the Bernie voter or like Bernie supporters in 2016 to Trump voters, recently pipeline is huge.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um, and I think that that's indicative of the way that things have kind of swirled in this weird way and like convictions. Like I think that the narrator of the RFK piece, she's not convictionless, but she's a little bit confused herself.
Yeah.
Um, but all of the characters are representative of real, like, characters in life and people that I've met and people that I see. And I'm like half optimistic and half worried about the men, the Zoomer men, because I think a lot of them are like kind of red pilled, dare I say, black pilled, but some of them are also like very like mal socialized or under socialized.
Sure. Yeah.
And like it was interesting. Like I like when he was like, I'm not an incel. Like don't think that I'm not an incel. Like that don't think that I'm an incel.
Yeah.
Um, or like I don't know, and like her assumption about that too, and like she knows what an incel is, but she doesn't know about Bitcoin is
Yeah.
also like interesting. I don't know. I kind of went on a tangent with that, but I just wanted to reflect how things actually were, and I thought it was interesting that the one big critique that my professor gave me was that there was no like clear side that I, as the writer, was taking.
Yeah. No,
And
that definitely jumped out at me when you were saying that. And I mean, that's just, to my mind, such an inappropriate critique of a writer. The idea that like you want to I mean, what I think she's really saying is, I want to know where you stand on what I consider to be this important moral issue so I can
yeah,
judge your fiction accordingly. And that's
yes.
just like antithetical to the artistic to aesthetics.
Right.
That's not what it's supposed to be.
That's the
It
problem with the mainstream and academia is like,
yeah.
oh, where do you stand politically? I know that if I were to actually like be honest and like in the discourse, I would that then I would actually get canceled in that class.
Yeah.
But like it's weird that you have to like pick a side when you're writing something.
Yeah, and it shouldn't have to be that way. It's again, that is, it should not be part of the aesthetic evaluation of a work of writing. The perspective and the political beliefs of the narrator, of the character, that should be considered. But the writer herself or himself, that is just, clearly it should be irrelevant. And if it is relevant, it's relevant for the wrong reasons. It reminds me of a workshop, one of the original workshops where I was working on Nutcracker, and one of the I mean actually the first chapters I ever wrote of it, this was before COVID. It was in the evening. They have these like writing courses for MF for like lawyers or professionals who want to write in the evening, which are taught by unemployed MFA grads. And frankly, it was fun. And the majority of people were pretty talented. The writer himself, who ran the class, was extremely talented. He's a great writer. I wish that he were more successful right now. But yeah, his class was good. And most of the reactions to one of the initial chapters of Nutcracker, it was all pretty positive. But I remember this one woman responding, and this is her speaking to me. She says, "You're clearly a good writer, but why would you choose to write something like this?"
Hmm.
And it was just like, it was the type of comment that I never expected that, because I had been a creative writing minor. I had been in many writing workshops in my, college years, early 20s, and that was never something that we really talked about. And
Mm,
the idea that in, I guess it was like 2019 or something, that my my reason for writing a piece would be relevant to her and determining whether, it should be read,
right,
is just, it's absurd. And it's this type of desire to like not entertain the aesthetic output of someone you disagree with
right.
is just like, well, okay, the majority of the fiction that, exists today was written by people who you would have material disagreements with
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're a progressive liberal.
Right.
So it's just this kind of like year zero ideology that like, okay, well, the only, correct fiction now is, written by Ocean Vuong or
Yeah.
something.
Oy vey.
Oy vey,
Well,
indeed.
like, I think that this is first of all, I think we know too much about people nowadays, which is cool, but it's like the only reason why certain like writers are like canceled or like people don't want to read. We know too much. People are so in each other's business
True.
because of social media, which I think is awesome. I think is cool. It would never stop me from,
Yeah.
reading somebody's work, but for those kinds of people would. It's like if all, yeah, as you were saying, like a lot of the, greatest writers of all time were, and like from what we do know now, like the little snippets, I'm sure they did so many crazy, abhorrent
Oh
things
yeah.
would
Many
prevent
very bad
everyone from
people.
reading them. Writers are terrible. Writers are, evil. Like what, analyzing like
Uh,
whatever, know too much, but then also I think I love like auto fiction, and like a lot of what I write is based on things that have happened, but then I also think it's unfair to judge the writers on like writing about a certain topic or assume that everything is true or that did happen to them,
yeah.
because it's not. And so, when people read my pieces and like assume that everything that I'm writing about is what actually happened, like I tweeted the other day, like it was kind of like a no-brainer tweet to me, and people thought it was funny or whatever. But like, autofiction is fiction. If it wasn't fiction, it would be nonfiction or just like
Yeah.
autobiographical writing. It's still fiction. And like, it's kind of unfair to like just assume that, you
Yeah.
know, just assume that this is, completely and totally true, and that the values of the author
Yeah.
are the values of the narrator. It's not true. It's stupid, but I mean, I guess then my transcendent take of that is that the people who would probably like fuck with the writing aren't the people who are saying that, and that people who do judge works like that maybe are on, in the middle of the bell curve type
Yeah.
like readers who just don't get it. So if you don't get it, you don't get it. Real recognize real. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The notion that the writing that you do is, necessarily all based on personal experience is, something that I think a lot of non-writers misconstrue, and they think of it in terms of whether autofiction or not. Like, oh, did this happen or did this not happen? Is this
Yeah.
fiction or is this not fiction? And so, like, people have asked me about that with regard to Nutcracker, and I'm like, well, okay, I know I've never been arrested for an aborted attempt at a mass shooting at a BDSM club. Definitely, that never happened. I'm a respected lawyer, never went to prison, but like, am I my main character, Spencer Grunhauer? Well, not really, no. I mean, I certainly didn't model him on me exactly. Are any of the characters modeled on real people? No, not exactly. I mean, they're all kind of like amalgams of people. Every character is an amalgam of,
Yeah.
people that I've known or, known either in person or through media or what have you. But what people, in my mind, can't seem to wrap their brains around exactly is the fact that, well, if you wrote it, it all did come from you. So, in some sense, yeah, there's a little bit of you in every character in the story because it's all guided by what you think those characters would have felt in that moment. So, you're you're the Holy Ghost in your fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, and then, we are so, we contain multitudes. We have, evil thoughts or urges sometimes, so we can understand an evil character and write the character that way. And then
Of course.
writers who are like afraid to do that because they are afraid of being like seen in that character. I love writing about bad people. Like it's interesting that like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a side of humanity that shouldn't be like censored or like blotted out. So, I don't know. It's just it's funny that that's become a thing, but I think that the more that we, you know, I'm like just optimistic. We obviously get it. There are many people who do, and maybe the whole term autofiction and because it's such a popular, genre, subgenre right now is like maybe part of the reason. I don't know, but at the same time, I don't know. Genre is also kind of one of those things that is irrelevant, or if you're thinking in those terms and judging everything based off genre, like I
Yeah.
like yeah, like when I worked in a record store, I had to learn genres and like types of music and categorize. And before that, I was like, what the hell? It's just if it's good, it's good. Like who cares? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. The only, to my mind, distinction between genre and literary fiction is just that. It's, is the fiction being written for aesthetic value or entertainment value? And
Yeah.
so the kind of like Tom Clancy thriller novel, that's going to have a certain structure. That's more like a screenplay. And like, yeah, you can read books like how to write a novel, and that will tell you how to write a Tom Clancy novel. And that's an effective way to study to do that. But
Mhm.
there's no, when people say like, well, what instructions would you give to a writer in terms of craft? And the answer, in my mind is always there are none. There's just, basically if you're trying to write literary fiction, I would, it's trite, but read a lot of different writers, see what they do, and sit down and write and just write creatively and try not to filter yourself. I find that if I write freehand rather than typing, it's easier because there's something about seeing the words on the screen that makes me self-conscious because I can really read it. I have bad handwriting, so I can't read my handwriting very well. So I just scribble on the page and I can just, fill up a notebook and, then in the editing process, I sit down and I try to decipher what I wrote and I translate it onto the screen. And yeah, the technique, to the extent that I have a technique, to the extent that I think there can even be a technique for literary fiction, is to write until you find a voice that's interesting. And once you find that voice, just, run with it. And as long as you're using the voice that you found, the story is going to be good because it's theoretically it's an interesting voice, and that's why you found it. That's why you like it. And so anything you say, if you're describing how you went to the supermarket and picked out groceries, if you're describing it in this kind of interesting voice, it will be good writing, and
Yeah.
that's that's my style.
Yeah. And it like translates to life too. Like I've talked about like with my friends, like, maybe it sounds a little pretentious, but like the poetic way of being is a way of being rather than just like well, it's like a practice. It's like it extends into life. So like the more I started writing poetry, the more I started finding my voice. Everything I do, it's like I'm siphoning meaning and creating meaning out of whatever. And anything can be interesting if you see it that way and you write it that way. And like, yeah, everything's inspiring. And yeah, I like scribbling stuff too. And then sometimes my form of scribbling is like just like random stuff on a notes app. But what I don't like about writing first drafts on the computer is there's too much possibility and capability to edit. I feel
Yeah,
like you write one word, you can delete it. You can,
exactly.
it takes a lot more effort to erase. And also I use pen always, so there's no erasing. There's just
Yeah,
scribbling out if I need to, but I don't like it doesn't feel as it feels actually more final to write it on paper. And then when I write on the computer, it's always just a game of like blah blah blah. And then I'll like
yeah,
go down a rabbit hole of like synonyms if I'm like this word doesn't fit right, it doesn't flow.
exactly. And
And it
it
distracts you.
disrupts the flow of the writing because
Yes.
you're thinking about it. You're in editing mode. At least I am.
Right.
Whenever I'm
Before,
typing, yeah,
yeah. Yes.
you see the
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
I love editing on the
Oh,
computer.
I do too.
Best
Yeah.
thing ever. It's so
It's
easy. It makes it easier, but not in a way that actually like inhibits creativity at all.
Yeah, it's fun because you've done the hard work. You have
Yeah.
the writing that produced, and then you can, you play around with what you have. And that's the fun of it to me. Well, that's part of the fun. Like writing it is also fun, but
There are
it's
so
all
many ways
fun.
to have
It's
fun.
great.
It's so fun to be a writer in 2025.
It's so fun to be alone in your apartment writing.
Yeah, it's the best.
All
Okay,
right.
word. Yeah.
On that note, I don't want to keep you for too long. So, yeah, do you have anything else you'd like to get into? This is a forum for you to promote any upcoming works, any final messages.
Yeah, well, I'm currently finalizing the I've been compiling poems and short stories. I'm writing this book right now. Um, my tentative title is Party Girl Elegies. And
Amazing.
yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm gonna get some eyes on it. And I don't know who I'm gonna end up publishing it with, so maybe this is like sort of like an auction opportunity. Who wants to publish my book? So I'm looking for
Well, I will
publish.
make an offer to you right now. New
Oh,
Ritual
word.
Press will publish it.
Yeah, wait, that'd be awesome.
No,
Okay, so
I'd love to.
remind everybody.
Yeah. No, and I mean, that would be great if we could announce when you're reading at the summer solstice party that we are publishing your debut book.
Yeah.
No pressure. And, obviously
Yeah.
I'll have to, have my lawyers speak to your lawyers, but we'll come to a deal, I'm sure.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. You can speak to Brian Levy about this. Yeah, no, that would be great. Okay, so never mind everybody. We'll talk business later after the podcast. I'll let you know, or if you just want to look at it. But
Oh, I'd
yeah, so
love to.
that's something
Yeah.
that I'm doing. Um, and then obviously, uh, yeah, I don't know. Follow me on Twitter. Follow us
Sardine
on Twitter,
enjoyer.
Sardine Enjoyer. Um, yeah. So I guess that's it. Um,
Okay,
yeah.
great. It's been wonderful having you on, Chloe. I'm happy we could close this deal on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see you and everyone else later this month at the Summer Solstice Party, June 21st, New Ritual Press's launch party in New York City. Be there to see Chloe read and to start a new ritual with all of
Yes.
us.
and to watch you try your first sardine.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll see you there.
We will.